There is a moment in life when the mirror stops reflecting only the lines on your face and begins to reveal the deeper truth of who you have become. That moment for many people arrives when they turn 80. You see, life at 80 is not just an extension of life at 70. It is a transformation, a shift so profound that no one escapes it. And whether you like it or not, 5 things begin to happen. These are not medical diagnoses or problems you need to solve. They are universal changes, written into the rhythm of being human, and they have the power to either drain you or set you free. Most people approach this stage with fear, imagining decline, loss, and limitation. But what if I told you that the very changes you dread could actually become your greatest opportunities? That at 80, you are not just enduring the passage of time. You are stepping into a chapter of life that can be more fulfilling than any decade before it. The difference lies not in the years themselves, but in how you choose to see them. Think about it. At 80, your body no longer runs on the same clock, your social world does not revolve around the same people, and your relationship with time itself is rewritten. Even the way your mind works evolves into something new. And perhaps the most surprising part is that these changes do not make you less, they make you more. More free, more authentic, more alive to what truly matters. But here's the catch. If you do not recognize what is happening, you might miss the very gift this stage offers. You might spend your days fighting your own rhythms, clinging to connections that no longer nourish you, or wasting energy on expectations that no longer serve you. You might mistake wisdom for weakness and freedom for loss. And in doing so, you would miss the quiet liberation that comes with this age. So let us be honest. Turning 80 is not easy. It is not comfortable. It forces you to confront truths you may have avoided for decades. But it also gives you something you may never have had before. The permission to finally live on your own terms. In the next few moments, we will explore 5 inevitable changes that define this stage. They will challenge you, but they will also inspire you. Because once you understand them, you will no longer see aging as something to fear. You will see it as the doorway into the most authentic chapter of your life. So ask yourself this. Are you ready to stop looking at 80 as an ending and start seeing it as a beginning? Because if you are, what comes next might just change the way you see not only these years, but your entire life. 1. When physical energy and sleep patterns transform. The first change that arrives at 80 is one that no one can ignore, because you feel it every single day. Your physical energy and your sleep patterns no longer follow the familiar rhythm that carried you through earlier decades. This is not about being weak or broken. It is about your body choosing a different pace, a pace designed for this chapter of life, and yet most people fight it. They resist, believing something is wrong, when in reality their body is simply doing what it was created to do. At 80, your internal clock, what scientists call your circadian rhythm, begins to shift. You may notice that your body wants to wind down earlier in the evening, around 8 or 9 o'clock, and wake naturally around 5 or 6 in the morning. You find that your energy peaks in the morning and early afternoon, with a sharper dip around 2 in the afternoon than you ever noticed before. This is not fatigue. It is your body aligning itself with a new rhythm. The architecture of your sleep changes as well. You spend more time in lighter stages and less in deep sleep. You may wake more often at night, but this does not mean your sleep is poor. It simply means your body rests differently now. Take Lucille, for example. At 82, she spent 2 years worrying that she could no longer stay awake past 9 and that she always woke around 5:30. She feared it meant her health was declining. But when her doctor explained this was normal, she stopped fighting it. She restructured her days around her new energy pattern. She reserved mornings for reading, correspondence, and light exercise. When she felt most alert, She scheduled social time for early afternoons and allowed herself a short rest around 2 without guilt, and she accepted her early bedtime as part of her new life. The result was striking. She felt more energetic and more accomplished than she had in years, not because she had more hours, but because she used the right ones well. Here lies the key. Your body is not betraying you. It is teaching you efficiency. It is reminding you to stop clinging to old rhythms and to embrace the ones that fit who you are now. When you stop fighting your natural cycle, you find you can live with more clarity, more focus, and more joy than before. So what can you do to honor this change? First, pay attention to your personal energy peaks. Spend a week tracking when you feel most alert and when you naturally feel tired. Patterns will appear. Second, match your priorities to those patterns. Do your most demanding tasks in the hours when your energy is highest, and allow yourself to rest when your body signals the need. Third, create a bedtime routine that supports your new rhythm. Dim the lights an hour before bed, avoid screens, and allow your mind to settle into calm. The biggest shift, however, is not physical. It is mental. For many people, the hardest part is not the new schedule itself, but letting go of the old one. You may feel guilty for resting in the afternoon or for leaving an evening event early, but guilt is the enemy here. The truth is, this stage of life gives you permission to design your days around what keeps you whole. You no longer need to measure your value by how late you stay awake or how many hours you push yourself. You measure it by how fully you live within the energy you have. Think about it this way. Your energy is like water in a glass. In your younger years, the glass was bigger, and you could pour it out in long, steady streams. Now the glass is smaller, but the water is no less precious. In fact, it is more valuable because you must choose carefully where to pour it. Use it wisely, and you will discover that fewer but more intentional hours can be more fulfilling than endless, busy days ever were. So pause and reflect. Have you noticed your energy shifting? Have you found yourself awake before sunrise, or ready for bed earlier than before? Instead of fighting it, ask yourself, how can I redesign my days to honor this new rhythm? Because when you do, you will realize that turning 80 is not the loss of energy. It is the discovery of a new kind of energy, one that rewards wisdom, intention, and peace. The second change that happens at 80 is not only inevitable, it is also transformative. Your social circle begins to shift in ways that you may not have anticipated. At first, it can feel like a loss. Old friends drift away, long familiar groups dissolve, and the invitations that once filled your calendar become fewer. But if you look closer, you will see this is not a decline in your social world. It is a refinement. At this stage of life, your emotional energy becomes more precious than ever, and your mind naturally guides you toward connections that truly matter. Think of Eugene. For decades, his weekly poker game had been the highlight of his social life. But by the time he reached 81, the group had begun to fade. Some friends moved away, others faced health challenges, and the atmosphere was no longer the same. Eugene felt at first as if he had lost an important part of his identity. But then he began volunteering at the local library, helping with a literacy program. There he met new friends, people who shared not just his age but his values and sense of purpose. These relationships were not built on nostalgia but on shared meaning, and he found himself more energized and fulfilled than he had been in years. This is the essence of what happens at 80. Your priorities shift. You have less tolerance for superficial interactions and more desire for depth. You may no longer crave large social gatherings. Instead, you are drawn to smaller circles, intimate conversations, and bonds that feel authentic. You are not becoming isolated. You are becoming selective. This is not social decline. It is social optimization. You might notice that some friendships naturally fade. Perhaps a friend you once enjoyed shopping with no longer understands your pace of life. Or maybe you find that you no longer connect with people whose conversations revolve around things that no longer matter to you. At first, letting these friendships go can feel unsettling. But the truth is, not every relationship is meant to last forever. And at 80, you begin to understand that this is not only acceptable, it is healthy. Daniela, at 82, described it best. She said, "I used to feel guilty about saying no to social events, as if I was letting people down. But I realized that when I say yes to everyone else, I say no to myself. Now I only spend time with people who truly bring me joy, or with conversations that add meaning to my life, and I have never felt lighter." This stage invites you to invest your time where it counts. Maybe that means nurturing deeper bonds with family. Maybe it means forming new friendships with people who share your passions today, not just your history. Maybe it means spending more afternoons in meaningful conversations instead of filling your calendar with empty obligations. The shift is clear: quality over quantity. A 2-hour talk with one person who understands you can be more fulfilling than a whole day surrounded by people who do not. To navigate this transition, you can begin with 3 choices. First, give yourself permission to let some relationships fade without guilt. You are not abandoning anyone. You are simply honoring the truth that not all connections are meant for every season of life. Second, seek new connections intentionally. Look for people who share your current values, interests, and stage of life. These friendships often blossom faster and with more depth than you expect. Third, invest deeply in the relationships that energize you. Be more intentional with your time, focus on quality, and allow yourself to be fully present. What you will discover is that many people at 80 report their friendships becoming more honest and supportive than ever before. They waste less energy on appearances and more on genuine connection. They care less about being liked by everyone and more about being truly known by a few. And in this, they often find more joy than they ever had in the busyness of their earlier years. So ask yourself, which relationships in your life bring you peace, joy, and understanding? Which ones leave you drained or unnoticed? Where are you still holding on out of guilt or habit? And where can you create space for bonds that truly matter now? The truth is, your social world at 80 is not shrinking. It is evolving. It is becoming sharper, clearer, more aligned with who you are today. When you stop trying to hold on to everything and start choosing what really feeds your soul, you find that the connections left are the ones that carry you, sustain you, and remind you that you are never truly alone. This is the beauty of social evolution. It is not about losing people. It is about gaining yourself. At 80, something extraordinary happens that few people talk about openly. Your relationship with time itself begins to change. It is not just about feeling that the days are shorter or that the years have flown by. It is about a profound shift in how you see time and how you choose to spend it. And once you notice this shift, it changes everything about the way you live. Psychologists call it a time perspective shift. In earlier decades, you might have felt compelled to please everyone, to keep up appearances, to live according to schedules and obligations that others set for you. But at 80, that pressure begins to fade. Suddenly you care less about what people think and more about what brings you peace, joy, and meaning. The expectations that once weighed you down, the fear of missing out, the endless obligations that filled your days, start to feel irrelevant. Instead, you begin to ask, how do I want to spend the hours I have today? Ruby, at 83, understood this well. For 40 years, she had been an active member of her church, attending every committee, organizing every event, fulfilling every responsibility expected of her. But the joy had disappeared long ago. Sundays felt heavy, more like duty than devotion. One day she chose differently. She stepped down from all her committees and spent her mornings in the garden she loved. She began volunteering at the community garden once a week, teaching younger people how to care for the soil. At first her family was worried, convinced she was becoming isolated, but Ruby said she had never felt more alive. She had traded obligation for joy, and in doing so she found energy she thought she had lost forever. This is the gift of the time perspective shift. You stop living according to other people's timelines and start living according to your own. You realize that time is not about quantity, it is about quality. A few hours spent doing something that nourishes your soul are more valuable than entire days filled with duties that leave you drained. At 80, you also develop what researchers call crystallized wisdom. It is the ability to see through the noise and focus on what truly matters. You may not move as quickly as you once did, but you can make decisions with more clarity and depth than ever before. You know the difference between what is urgent and what is important. You recognize which conversations are worth your energy and which ones you can release. And you begin to measure your life not by how much you do, but by how meaningful it feels. This shift is liberating, but it also requires courage. It is not easy to say no to expectations you once felt bound to. It is not easy to step away from obligations that defined you for decades. But the moment you do, you discover that freedom does not come from having endless time. It comes from choosing wisely how to use the time you have. To embrace this transformation, start with a simple practice. Do a time audit. Look at your week and notice which activities give you energy and which ones drain it. Be honest with yourself. Then begin to make small adjustments. Say no to one request that does not align with your priorities. Replace one draining activity with something that fills you. Give yourself permission to let go of traditions or routines that no longer serve you. The power is not in doing more. The power is in choosing better. The beauty of this shift is that it often leads to the most authentic life you have ever lived. For decades, you may have been defined by roles, responsibilities, and the expectations of others. But now, you can finally decide for yourself. You can spend time in ways that reflect who you truly are. You can have conversations that matter, create experiences that bring you joy, and let go of the need to perform for anyone else. So pause and reflect. How are you spending your time now? Are you still holding on to obligations that no longer bring you life? Or are you beginning to choose with intention, saying yes to what feeds your soul and no to what empties it? At 80, time becomes less about the ticking clock and more about the moments that make you feel alive. When you embrace this shift, you stop fearing that time is running out. Instead, you begin to live with the clarity that every moment matters, and that the way you choose to spend it defines the quality of your life. This is not about giving up on life. It is about finally living it on your own terms. At 80, one of the most surprising shifts you will experience happens in your mind. For many people, the fear of aging has always been tied to the loss of memory or mental sharpness. We imagine that our brains will simply decline, that forgetfulness is a sign of losing ourselves. But the truth is far more fascinating. Your brain at 80 is not failing, it is reorganizing. It is no longer optimized for speed, but for depth. It trades certain abilities for others, and the trade-off can actually make your life richer if you learn to see it through the right lens. Yes, short-term memory may not serve you the way it once did. You may walk into a room and forget why you came. You may struggle to recall a name that was just mentioned. These moments can feel frustrating, but something else is happening at the same time. Your long-term memory grows more vivid. Decades-old experiences return with new clarity, often connecting in ways you never noticed before. You begin to see patterns across your life. to draw meaning from the many paths you have walked. You are no longer a quick processor of new information. You are a master of wisdom synthesis. Carlton, a retired engineer now 84, understood this shift. He was frustrated when he could no longer memorize technical details as quickly as before. But when his adult son came to him with a complex work problem, Carlton surprised himself. Without needing all the details, he could instantly see a solution that others had missed. His decades of experience had created pathways in his mind that allowed him to connect ideas and recognize patterns quickly. While younger colleagues had the speed, Carlton had the insight. He realized that his brain was no longer built for storing details. It was built for solving problems that required wisdom. This is what Jung might have called the beauty of the unconscious at work. You trade speed for depth, recall for connection, novelty for meaning. Your brain becomes less about capturing every detail and more about interpreting the story those details tell. And when you learn to value this transformation, you stop seeing forgetfulness as weakness and start seeing wisdom as your greatest strength. So how do you work with this shift instead of against it? First, externalize routine information. Use calendars, lists, and notes for the small details, freeing your mind for the deeper thinking it is now better at than ever. Second, engage in activities that require pattern recognition and wisdom. Play strategy games, mentor younger people, join discussions where your life experience adds depth. Third, challenge your mind with learning, but focus on subjects that build on what you already know instead of trying to master something completely foreign. This way, your brain connects new knowledge to old, strengthening the pathways it already excels in. The most important mindset shift is this. Your thinking style has not deteriorated. It has specialized. You may not recall the grocery list without writing it down, but you can instantly sense when a decision is wise or when someone's words ring hollow. You may not remember every detail of a new book, but you can grasp its deeper message and relate it to the truths you have lived. That is not loss. That is refinement. Think of it like the evolution of a tree. When the tree was young, it grew quickly, producing new branches and leaves in every direction. Now, at 80, the tree no longer grows as fast, but its roots are deeper, its trunk stronger, its shade broader. It is not less of a tree. It is more of one. Your mind at this stage functions the same way. Many people at 80 notice that decision-making becomes more intuitive. You may take longer to process new details, but you often arrive at better choices because you can see through the surface to the heart of the matter. You know when someone is being honest. You sense when a choice aligns with your values. You recognize which paths are worth walking and which ones will only drain you. That kind of wisdom cannot be rushed. It is the gift of a lifetime of living. So the next time you forget why you walked into a room, smile instead of worrying. That small lapse is not a sign of decline. It is the price of the extraordinary depth your mind now holds. The real question is not how quickly you can recall a fact, but how deeply you can understand the meaning behind it. Ask yourself this. How has your thinking changed as you have grown older? Have you noticed that while speed has slowed, clarity has sharpened? Have you found new strengths in the way you connect ideas and interpret life? If you have, then you know the truth. At 80, your brain is not failing you. It is guiding you toward the kind of wisdom that younger minds cannot yet reach. This is the beauty of mental evolution. It is not about clinging to who you were. It is about stepping into the power of who you are now. Reaching the age of 80 is often described as crossing into the twilight of life, a stage when people expect limitations, loss, and decline. But the truth is far more powerful and liberating than most realize. At 80, you step into a kind of freedom that you may never have known before. It is the freedom to finally be who you are, without apology, without pretense, without the weight of expectations you carried for decades. This transformation is not about becoming careless. It is about becoming authentic. It is about no longer living for the approval of others, and finally giving yourself permission to live for yourself. Throughout your earlier years, you likely played many roles. You may have been the dedicated parent, the reliable employee, the loyal spouse, the supportive friend, the responsible community member. Each role came with expectations, some spoken, some silently imposed, and in fulfilling them, you may have hidden parts of yourself. You may have silenced opinions, postponed passions, or sacrificed desires in order to fit the picture that others had of you. At 80, those roles begin to lose their grip. The obligations that once defined you no longer carry the same power. The need to please fades, and in its place grows a desire for truth, for honesty, for authenticity. Constance knew this better than anyone. For more than 50 years, she lived as the perfect minister's wife, conservative in dress, careful in speech, devoted to others' needs. She became the person everyone expected her to be. But at 82, something shifted. She decided she was done being proper in a way that denied her soul. She began wearing bright, colorful clothes that reflected her personality. She took up painting, filling her canvases with bold, abstract colors. She spoke her mind freely, even when it startled those who had known her for decades. Far from making her difficult, this transformation made her vibrant. Her family was surprised, but her grandchildren loved the new grandmother who painted wildly and told the truth with laughter in her eyes. Constance had not lost herself. She had found herself. This freedom often confuses people, because at the same time that your physical body may be more limited, your inner world expands in extraordinary ways. You might walk more slowly, but you live more boldly. You may forget names now and then, but you remember what truly matters. You may rest more often, but when you speak, your words carry more weight than ever. That is the paradox of authenticity at 80. As the outer world slows, the inner world shines brighter. Why does this happen? Because so many of the external pressures that shaped your earlier life no longer apply. You are no longer building a career, no longer raising young children, no longer proving yourself to society. You have already done those things. Now you are free to live by your own values, your own truth. For the first time in decades, you can ask not what do they expect from me, but what do I want for myself. The beauty of this authenticity is that it improves your relationships rather than weakens them. When you are finally honest about who you are and what you want, the people who love you see you more clearly. They may need time to adjust, but they discover that the authentic version of you is more alive, more joyful, more inspiring. Many people at 80 report that their family bonds deepen, not because they do more for others, but because they are finally honest about their needs, their limits, and their joys. Carlos, at 80, felt invisible in his own home. His teenage children barely noticed him, wrapped in their own worlds. He tried jokes, he tried strictness, he even tried gifts, but nothing worked. One day, instead of chasing their attention, he turned inward. He remembered his love for painting and set up a small corner in his garage. At first he doubted himself, but with each brushstroke he came alive again. Slowly, his children began to notice, not because he asked them to, but because his authenticity drew them in. They joined him, curious about the calm joy he carried. Carlos had discovered that being himself was more powerful than any attempt to win attention. This is the invitation that authenticity offers you. Stop fighting for recognition. Stop performing for approval. Start living in alignment with who you really are. Wear the clothes that make you feel alive. Spend your time on what brings you joy. Speak the truths you have long kept inside. Pursue the hobbies you once set aside. At 80, the permission you have been waiting for has finally arrived. So how do you embrace this freedom? Begin by identifying where you are still living according to others' expectations. Ask yourself, what roles am I still playing that no longer reflect my truth? Then, give yourself permission to release them. Take one small step this week toward authenticity. Maybe it is saying no to a request you do not want to fulfill. Maybe it is spending a morning doing something that brings you joy without telling anyone why. Maybe it is sharing an opinion you once kept hidden. These small steps are how authenticity grows. You might be surprised by the response. Often, when you begin to live authentically, others are drawn to you. They see your courage and feel inspired to be more honest themselves. Authenticity is magnetic. Forced effort repels, but authenticity attracts. The freedom at 80 is not about recklessness. It is about wisdom. It is about knowing which expectations still matter and which ones can finally be set down. It is about choosing joy over duty, presence over performance, peace over pretense. It is about finally stepping into the life that was always waiting for you beneath the layers of roles and responsibilities. So pause and reflect. What expectations are you ready to let go of? What parts of yourself are you ready to express more fully? What would your life look like if you stopped performing and started living? Here is your challenge. This week, choose one act of authenticity. Do something not because it is expected, but because it is true for you. Write it down. Live it. Feel the freedom it brings. At 80, your worth is no longer measured by how much you do for others or how well you fit their picture of you. It is measured by how fully you live in alignment with who you really are. And when you step into that truth, the silence of others no longer defines you. The world's approval no longer controls you. You are finally free. This is the culmination of all the changes you have experienced. The energy shifts that taught you to honor your rhythms. The social evolution that led you to deeper connections. The time transformation that showed you what truly matters. The mental reorganization that gave you wisdom. And now, the authenticity that allows you to live as yourself. Together, they do not mark decline. They mark transformation. So I ask you now, what is the one truth you will choose to live today? Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Because the moment you choose it, you step into the freedom and authenticity that makes these years not the end, but the most liberating chapter of your life.